How do you legally pay as little tax as you possibly can on your investments without getting into trouble?
Cutting off the circulation to my hand.
The UK is in a bit of a crisis at the moment. It is now as important as ever to make sure that you can reduce your exposure to tax. Inflation is at the highest it's been for years at 5.4%. Energy bills are up £700 a year for the average family. The cost of filling up your car has gone up by £300 versus this time last year. And national insurance is going to go up by the equivalent of 10% from April. This is going to put a lot of people into poverty in one of the most developed countries in the world. If you're trying to invest for your future, for the future of your kids, for the future of your grandkids even, then please watch this video. Because in reality, the system in the UK is actually set up in a way for you to be able to maximize your investment returns. Just need to know how. HMRC is one of the most powerful institutions in the UK, probably in the world. And if you upset them, they have got the authority to control your tax code, automatically take a proportion of your wages before you've even seen it, literally empty your bank account if they want to, search your premises, and if all else fails, they can even arrest you and put you in jail.
And watch your fingers, booty hole man!
They're one of the richest institutions in the UK and can turn your life upside down if they so wish. I grew up to a parent who was a chartered accountant, and I have heard and seen firsthand the impact of what a tax audit can do to a person. So getting your taxes right in the first instance, whilst incredibly boring, is so important to help you be able to sleep at night and actually to maximize your potential returns. No one likes tax. I get it. Just ask Jimmy Carr. But it's a necessary evil if you want those roads, if you want those hospitals, if you want those fire engines, and if you want your kids to get an education. So one of the first things you might think as an investor when you start investing is, how much tax am I going to have to pay on all of this? So let's look at the tax implications of buying, owning, and selling shares in the UK. Then let's look at how to avoid them legally. None of this is going to be overly complex. I'm not about to suggest that you start opening accounts in the Cayman Islands, nor am I a tax expert or even a financial advisor or planner. So if you do need expert advice on any of this stuff, please make sure you do go and seek it. We're going to keep this pretty straightforward, and let's start with taxes when you buy shares. If you buy shares in any business in the UK, you may or may not have noticed a 0.5% stamp duty fee. Now, its proper name is stamp duty reserve tax. This is different to the stamp duty that you might pay when you're buying a house. This is a tax applied to all UK shares bought, and it cannot be avoided inside or outside of an ISA. An ISA will protect you from dividend and capital gains tax, and we'll come on to that in a minute, but you cannot legally get away without paying stamp duty inside or outside of an ISA. So bear that in mind. Anytime you buy any shares in a UK business, you will automatically pay it whether you see it or not. But this only applies to UK shares. You won't pay any stamp duty on any American shares that you buy. So if you want to avoid paying stamp duty, just buy American shares then. Well, it's not quite as simple as that, I'm afraid, because if you do buy American shares, you will end up paying a currency exchange fee, because basically you're buying shares in a different currency. So they charge you a fee for this, and this fluctuates quite a bit depending upon what the currency exchanges are doing on any given day. Just like when you go into Mallorca and you're at the airport and you're buying your pesos, not pesos anymore, is it? Christ, how far behind the times am I? When you're buying your euros in the airport, you'll have to pay. Now, whilst I said there is no way to get around it, there is actually one, and it is to buy an exchange traded fund, or an ETF as it's better known. There is no stamp duty on ETFs that you buy within the UK. But to complicate it even more, if you do buy an index fund, there is a stamp duty on that. However, built into any given ETF, there is a fee, which pretty much negates any benefit that you would have had in the first instance versus buying an index. So in reality, there's very little difference in buying an index versus an ETF in terms of fees. Now let's look at the best way to protect yourself against holding shares in the UK. And how we do this is through an ISA. ISA stands for Individual Savings Account, and it is honestly one of the best, if not the most misunderstood financial products in the whole world. Basically, an ISA allows you to put £20,000 into the stock market completely free of any tax whatsoever. No capital gains, no dividend tax, with the exception of stamp duty. It runs from April to April, so you can put £20,000 into the market at the beginning of April. You can put it all into, for the sake of an example, you can put it all into Amazon. If that increases to £60,000 come the end of March the next year, it's all yours, completely tax-free. So there's a bit of a misunderstanding sometimes I've had in terms of people thinking, well, if it increases over £20,000, do I pay the tax on that? No. It is £20,000 into the product, tax-free, irrespective. It could go up to 5 million quid, 10 million, a billion quid. You won't pay any tax whatsoever. In reality, this is a product that should be used for years, and if you continue to drip into it as much as you possibly can over the course of the years, over the course of those years, you will pay no tax, And if you relinquish all of the cash that you've made up over the years, come 20 years time and you want to retire on it, it will be yours tax-free. Now, very few people will actually max out their ISA over the course of the year, but even if you do, there's still an opportunity to not pay any tax on additional invested income. We'll come on to that shortly. First, I just want to cover dividends. So dividends within an ISA are completely tax-free again. So what are dividends? Dividends are basically a proportion of a business's earnings that they pay out to shareholders to keep them happy. Now, dividend tax is linked to a tax bracket, just like your income is. The more you earn, the more you're going to pay. So the higher your income, the higher the dividends that you're earning, the higher your day-to-day income is, the more that you're going to pay in dividend tax. And it looks a bit like this. How to avoid it, again, is by investing through an ISA. But if you also want to invest outside of an ISA, you also get a tax-free allowance. So you can make up to £2,000 in dividends completely tax-free. So anything that you earn above that outside of an ISA, you'll pay as per the bracket before. But you can earn £2,000 in dividends completely tax-free before you need to pay a penny. Now, in reality, it's quite a lot. That's quite a lot of money. That means you would need to have £40,000 to £50,000 invested in order to be able to get that sort of dividend income. If you're starting to encroach into that area, that's a pretty nice problem to have. Next up, we've got capital gains. And capital gains basically means that money that you make on your investment. So as I mentioned about Amazon before, if it goes up to £60,000, you've put £20,000 into it, you've made £40,000 capital gains. Just like if you're a property developer, if you buy a house for £100,000, you invest £10,000 into it to do it up a little bit. You sell it for £200,000. You've made £90,000 capital gains. The beauty of investments, of course, is you don't have to do any DIY. Businesses that you invest to do all the work for you. Capital gains can be paid on anything that you're making money out of. It can be paid on watches. It can be paid on jewelry. It can be paid on art, whiskey, whatever. If it increases in value and you realize that, you're going to have to pay capital gains tax. Again, ISAs completely protect you irrespective of however much the value of those stocks go up. But you do have a fallback, and that again is your allowance. So if you max out your ISA, you still get an allowance. So you still get an allowance of £12,300 every year. So the government will allow you to make, on top of your ISA, they'll allow you to make £12,300 in capital gains before you have to pay any tax. So again, if you're in a fortunate enough position, you've maxed out your ISA, you can still play around with other platforms. I personally have about half a dozen different platforms that I like to play around with just to get to know them. I'm under no circumstance am I worried that I'm going to be earning over £12,300 in capital gains, especially not this year, given what my portfolios look like. So again, in reality, most people are not going to get themselves into a position where they're going to be earning more in capital gains than £12,300. So take advantage of your ISA in the first instance. After that, take advantage of the tax-free allowance in dividends, which is £2,000, in capital gains, which is £12,300. And if you realize that you're in a position where actually you're earning a lot more than that, you have two options. You can get yourself a very good accountant that can work something out for you, or you're going to have to fill in a self-assessment tax form and pay the tax. Hopefully this video is useful for you guys. And if you are interested in this sort of thing, watch this video here.